Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Co-op Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Billy Jr., and today I'm joined by Mr. Gary Ace Waby. How's it going, Gary?
It's going good, thanks. Another Sunday, another podcast. How are you doing,
Good
Rich?
afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome Doing pretty to good. A brand new episode of the Co-op Podcast. Taking it easy on this Sunday afternoon. I'm your host, Richard Billy Jr. Looking forward to talking about all the topics today. We're also joined by Mr. Jake James Lugo. How's it going, Mr. Lugo?
I'm doing good. I've been busy the entire week, even like throughout the weekend. I tried to actually rest up on the weekend, and I was like, nope, got to get stuff done. So here I am.
I'm your host. Oh, yeah. I totally understand that. 100%. There was quite a bit of news stories that happened this week that we definitely have to address. But before we get into any of that, we got to talk about what we have been playing. So I'm going to go to you first, Mr. Lugo. How about you let us know what you've been playing?
So I have a couple new reviews up on the website now that you guys could definitely check out. I actually got reviews for Jump Force. You guys got to check that out now. That went up the day of release. We actually had it mad early. We kind of went a little bit after the embargo when it finally lifted because I wanted to make sure that I covered everything because there was a lot to unpack with that game. There was a lot that was pretty banged up overall. But besides that, right, that review is up now. You guys can read that. I also reviewed an indie game from Digerati that's a little bit more of on the retro side of things, or at least, a nod to the retro. It's like NES-style action platformer games. Odalis, The Dark Call. It was actually pretty interesting. It's got a lot of inspiration from like Castlevania, Ghosts and Goblins, a little bit of Metroid and Metroidvania style gameplay injected into it. It's pretty interesting, especially if you love that style of like dark atmosphere / like fun nods to 80s and 90s pop culture references. It's pretty cool overall. There's a lot of fun things in there that you guys should definitely check out. And then outside of that, I've been playing a couple other games here and there, a lot of legacy titles. I've been playing Tetris 99, which a lot of people have been really diving into. That's the first battle royale game I've been playing like significantly because you guys know I'm not really a huge fan of the battle royale game type, with first-person shooters and stuff. But taking that type of philosophy and injecting it into something like Tetris, but still maintaining the core Tetris gameplay where I'm actually like doing something constantly rather than waiting and lingering around and stuff. Now it actually has got me into it. So it's pretty fun overall, but that's what I've been up to on top of everything else.
That sounds awesome. I was also going to ask, what else have you been up to aside from playing games?
Oh, I've been busy like crazy, just again doing a lot of editorial stuff, setting up a lot of stuff for us over the next like couple months here in the Koalition, and then obviously doing my own thing and checking out a couple things, on like YouTube and stuff like that. I've been guesting on some podcasts, or I'm setting up to be guesting on some podcasts for us, which is going to be very, very cool. Going to be on a variety of different shows throughout the end of this month into next month and the following month that you guys are going to be pretty interested to see. I'll be talking about it on social media and stuff, so you never know. It's going to be pretty dope.
Awesome. Sounds good. Looking forward to it. So I'm going to go to you next, Gary. What have you been playing and what have you been up
to? So in terms of what I've been playing, of course, I've been playing Overwatch. Nothing new to report there, but the Overwatch League is now back, so I've been watching a lot of that also. Besides that, I actually finally got to try Apex Legends. So I gave that a go a couple of days ago because, a lot of people from Overwatch are kind of migrating to that game. And I have to say, it's a pretty fun game. I like that, each character is unique and has their own unique abilities, very much like Overwatch. But obviously the entire game is structured differently from Overwatch. But I do like that touch that, each character has their own abilities to offer the squad and everything. And I like that there's like I like how they do the character select thing where you have to like take turns to select the character you want and things like that. I think that something like that would make Overwatch kind of fun as well. Like if there was a mode like that where it's on a timer or something and each person has to pick who they want, like that would be an interesting dynamic in Overwatch. Because the way Overwatch works is like you have to insta-lock your character so somebody else doesn't. So yeah, I mean, it might force people to play different characters instead of being too comfortable with one character. But Yeah, there's a lot to learn though in Apex Legends because I have to get to know which weapons are, actually good and which ones I'm comfortable with using, as well as I have to learn what each ability does for the different characters in the game. Because I've only like played like three of the characters, and for a lot of them, I still don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with their abilities and things. I only kind of mastered the healer character, and that's because I'm used to playing healers in games, so there was some familiarity there, I guess. But yeah, Apex Legends, I like the art style as well. But yeah, I mean, it follows the same kind of formula as Fortnite and these other battle royale games. It doesn't do much new in terms of originality. It's just the fact that each character has their own abilities and things like that. But it's fun. It seems fun. A lot more fun than Fortnite to me personally. But I know there's some that would disagree. So yeah, Apex Legends, cool. I need to play it more, get used to it a bit more. Hopefully, I'll get a squad together. And that's pretty much it. Oh, I did play some more Mass Effect Andromeda too, but I don't really have much new to offer on that, besides what I said last week. So that's it.
Sounds good. I really do wish that I had an opportunity to play Apex Legends. Maybe I will jump into that at some point over the next few days. But yeah, I'll talk about it next week, hopefully. And as for what I have been playing, really only two games. The first game I have been playing, yes, I have been playing Metro Exodus. I'm actually doing a review and a few other things for this game, so stay tuned for that because that'll be on the site this week. I wish that I could have gotten it done sooner, but I did receive the game a little bit late. So yeah, we'll definitely talk about it. But what I will say is, in my personal opinion, I haven't played Far Cry New Dawn, and I have not played Jump Force yet, nor Crackdown 3. But I do think that, in my personal opinion, so far, Metro Exodus, this is probably one of the better games that did release on the 15th, because I know all four of these games came out on the 15th. And what I have seen in terms of the scores, the critics seem to agree because Metro Exodus has been getting great scores across the board. So for those who do like first-person shooters, it is a great first-person shooter game, although it definitely requires you to think a little bit more in terms of how you do things from a strategy standpoint. Because again, you have to maintain your filters, just like in the other games. You have to maintain your filters, and whenever, based on the weather conditions and stuff, you have to constantly clear your mask. You have to do that on a consistent basis. Also, you have to worry about how you manage your ammo. Now, they do have an option where you can play the game on an easier setting, and then when you start to shoot people, it's just you'll have more access to more ammo. But if you play it on the setting it's meant to be played on, it is definitely challenging between fighting humans and then fighting the mutants. But from what I played so far, it's a great game. If you like story-driven games, it does have a couple of interesting twists and turns in the storyline as well. And it does have a lot of side missions you can do. I believe the game initially is about 10 to 12 hours, just the story, if you just play just the story. But with the side missions, it can go up to like 24, 25 hours. So I have been playing that extensively, enjoying it a lot. So stay tuned for my impressions, which will be on the website sometime this week. But yeah, I definitely say if you're a fan of first-person shooters that have a narrative behind them, then you definitely should check out this game. And you don't necessarily need to play the other two entries because it does give you a fair amount of content to keep to bring you up to date as to everything that's happened so far. But yeah, fantastic game. Hopefully it does well sales-wise. But yeah, definitely worth checking out. And the other game that I have been playing, I'm not really going to speak too much on this game. I just want to let everybody know that I do have it. I have been playing Trials Rising. So look for my impressions on this game. I want to say within the next couple of days. But so far, if you are a Trials fan, I think you're going to definitely want to check this out. That's all I can say for right now. But that pretty much covers what I have been playing and what we've all been playing. So we're going to go in and we're going to jump right into the news topics because there is quite a bit to discuss. Now, before I get to this story about Anthem, because I know Gary absolutely wants to talk about this story, I just want to mention this briefly. I know last week we spoke about what was going on with the rumored Activision Blizzard layoffs. And we did receive that unfortunate news this week that it was roughly 800 people that were let go at Activision Blizzard. And on top of that, there was also the news, for whatever reason, they decided to also reveal the news that the next Call of Duty coming out this year is going to have a campaign. So I don't really care too much about the Call of Duty news, but I did want to ask you both your thoughts on what happened and the fact that it was so many people, because I definitely wasn't expecting it to be 800 people getting let go. So very devastating to hear that news, but I just wanted to get you guys quick thoughts on that. How about you go first, Gary, since this apparently will not be impacting Overwatch based on the statement that they released.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't affect Overwatch, but I do know that there were people who were let go from the esports division and, you know, a few people from the Overwatch League. But yeah, I mean, it always sucks. Like we said last week, this always sucks to hear when people lose their jobs, you know, especially when it's like people you somewhat know of as well. There was like a photographer that you know, we because I used to write for an Overwatch League site, and there was this photographer that we always used to credit in our articles because of the amazing pictures he captured. And you know, he was one of the people who was kind of let go. So whenever you know of people who were let go like that, you know, it just makes it even more, you know, upsetting to hear that news. And it's especially sad when you realize that it's because, you know, they're trying to make, they're trying to save money, and they're trying to have more money so that they can pay the new CFO a hefty bonus, because he's got like a $15 million bonus, and you know, they had to free up some cash so that they could pay that bonus. So it's like, you know, to get that one CFO, they sacrifice like all this stuff basically. And I'm hearing there's a lot of cost cutting going on in the company as well. So I don't know how much that is going to affect all of the games at Activision Blizzard and stuff. But I guess we'll see what the effects of this will be in the future. But it definitely sucks to hear.
Oh, yeah. I absolutely agree with that. I mean, I know that they already said there are other games that they're pretty much not going to be impacted by this, but again, don't really know how concrete that information is. I just know it's unfortunate to hear about layoffs. I mean, I know it happens frequently in this industry as well as others, but still, it's bad to hear, and it's also especially bad to hear when the people who are fired receive little to no warning at all that this is going to happen. It's like you go to work and then that same day, end of the day, oh yeah, don't bother coming back tomorrow. I really hate when that stuff happens, especially on that level. But yeah. You have any additional thoughts you want to share on this, Mr. Lugo?
Honestly, no. I think that most of what could be said about those layoffs has already been said all over the place. So yeah, it really sucks, and it's a damn shame to hear about this stuff, especially when we know it's coming. So hopefully everybody that got let go and everybody that's feeling the effects of that can actually land on their feet elsewhere.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. But yes, we do wish them well, and we shall see what comes from all of this. So I think we'll move on now to the topic that I believe Gary definitely has a lot to say on. For those who do have Origin, I believe it's Origin Premier. I believe you have to correct me if I'm wrong, Gary. If you have Origin Premier, okay, so if you have Origin Premier, you were able to start playing Anthem as soon as this past Friday, whereas everybody who has pre-ordered the Legion of Doom edition or the regular edition cannot play the game until next week, I believe. So I believe you wanted to talk about this and ask our thoughts on EA Access and how that's also involved. So I'm going to give the floor over to you on this topic.
Yeah, well, I wanted to get your guys' perspective on this as well, but before I, ask you guys a question, basically what's happened is obviously we saw that chart before that EA put out where, it detailed who could play the game early and for how long. So if you have the EA Premier subscription, which is like £70 in the UK, I'm not sure on the US price, you will get full access. So like the full game a week early. So people were actually able to get the game on Thursday. I believe it was supposed to be on or do I have, no, I think I have this mixed up. I think Friday was the actual day, but you were supposed to be able to get it on Thursday, but EA messed up and didn't release it on, on the right time that they were supposed to. And then I think people actually got it on Friday, or at least people in the UK. I'm not sure what time it was in the US. But yeah, so people got the access to the full game early, whereas people who have EA access, they get a 10-hour trial of the game, and they have to wait for the full game till next week. So that caused an uproar. People were upset that PC players who have Premiere had that extra option where they could play the game, the full game. And to add on top of that, there were glitches and bugs in the game that allowed people to get extra content. So like at the start of the game, you had people getting access to all the javelins. They got access to, I think it was like weapons and things like that they weren't supposed to have already. And I don't think these things are being taken away from the players either, but they did fix the bug. So, when people join the game next week, that's not going to be a problem. So the people who did play early, they got that, some of them at least got that early advantage, by getting extra stuff. So that caused an uproar. People feel like they're unfairly treated. I have to say myself, because I pre-ordered the Legion of Dawn edition, which was £70. I mean, they should throw me a bone, man. They should just be like, you know what? These guys paid a lot of money for this edition. Let's just let them play too. Like at least throw us a bone, like, and let us play a little early. Like, we're spending a lot of money on this game. We're putting a lot of faith in EA, especially after what happened with Battlefront. So, they need to stop being stush and just like let us play, man. But yeah, I mean, overall though, I mean, if that's how the service is, if that's the benefits of this service that they're offering is that you get to play early, then fair enough, and I don't like people complaining on consoles. I think they just feel left out that they don't get the full game. But you guys, you don't have PCs, so I wanted to ask you guys, do you feel it's unfair that PC gamers get access to the full game a week early? Or, do you feel that it's fair, like, given the terms of the service and everything?
Honestly, honest to God, I don't think it's something that us as console gamers that are strictly just console gamers for the most part should be complaining about something like this. Because if we're going to complain about something like this, we also have to complain for the majority of games out there that don't have to pay for online services with PC games. I know that's another thing for people that are in the PC market, that their online capabilities aren't something that they have to pay yearly. So it's kind of like a non-argument. I think that, there's a lot of different perks for both sides, both PC and console gamers out there. For this, I mean, if it's a perk of the service and, people that are joining up on this, that's something that they get like that, I don't think it's that much of a big deal. It's not entirely supremely unfair from the sounds of it. It's not like something where it's a huge disparage in the type of experience that both platforms are going to get. Now, the thing with the glitches, though, as far as unlocking the extra content, that seems like there's something wrong on the back end that maybe EA should really look at and really kind of explore and actually clarify and maybe do something for both sides to kind of even things out, to kind of, make nice with everybody that's going to be checking out the game. But as far as like being upset because they get a little bit more early access, that's the same thing with EA access already with other games. They've done that before in the past. I know on Xbox One with a few other titles. I don't remember which specific ones, but I know they've done that before and it wasn't a big deal back then.
Yeah. So, those are good thoughts. The thing with EA Access, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong, Gary. I believe that if you have EA Access and you play Anthem, it's only the 10-hour demo. I don't know if it's the full game. At least I haven't heard anybody that has told me yet they're able to play the full game of Anthem right now.
Wait, say that again.
So yeah, just correct me if I'm wrong. If you have EA access on Xbox, you're only able to play 10 hours of Anthem.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You're not able
yeah.
to
If you have access on console, yeah, you can only play 10 hours. But PC gamers who have EA Premier can play the full game.
Yeah. So my only complaint with this is, I think if anyone purchased that Legion of Dawn edition, I think they should have access to the game right now, because you're paying.
I agree with that.
Was it what?
I said I agree with that, especially because they dropped more money on that special edition. I don't understand that with some game companies where they'll have a collector's edition or a special edition that's like the ultimate edition for their game, but they won't give those people that drop that extra money all the extra perks for all the other previous editions. I think that the exclusivity lines there get a little bit messed up, because the people who pay more should be able to get all the stuff that they're paying for.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because I know when Ubisoft or any other person, they do like a gold edition or the ultimate edition of a game, that means the game will come out a couple of days early, and depending on whatever platform it's on, it's available that day on all platforms. So that's the only issue that I have, that I would think if you got that edition, you definitely should get the game early, no doubt about that. But I do understand, for those that paid the $15 extra, I believe, for the premium service on Origin, okay, I guess that's fine for those, because they did pay the additional on top of whatever edition of the game they got. So that's fine if you want to give them early access. But yeah, anyone that got that deluxe edition, they should have access to that game like right now. So
I agree, because I'm one of those people who spent that £70, and I'm feeling very left out right now, considering I spent so much money. So
yeah. So you can't play the game officially until launch day. Then that's what you were told.
Yeah, I mean, I'm able to preload the game, and I did that. I already have the game preloaded on Origin, but I just can't play it till launch day.
Yeah, that's I don't think that's a wise decision.
I think there's something that we should also acknowledge. Maybe this is why that's the case. Maybe it has something to do with the online servers. Like, maybe it has something to do with the sheer amount of people that are going to dive into it when the game finally releases out, that they're probably trying to control the amount of people, at least right now, that they could see, like, to stress test, like, their ability to, like, have all those people on at the same time. That could be a thing. I could be totally wrong, but let's also acknowledge that as well. That could also be a thing with other companies that probably do something similar, especially since Anthem is such an online-centric game.
Yeah, I mean, that could be part of, their reasoning and logic here, but to put a monetary value on getting in the game early is kind of in poor taste, when there's other games out there who have look at Warframe. It's a completely free game, and they rarely have any server issues. There's other game releases that go smoothly, like maybe for like an hour or something the server is disconnected, and after that it runs smooth. And also, like, even with this, when the game went live for the EA Premier people, there was server connection disruptions then, so they still had server issues anyway. So I mean, if that's their reasoning, then I mean, they didn't do a good job anyway. So
I feel you on that. I still think it could be a possibility, but I definitely feel you on that.
Yeah, and I believe this is the first game that's part of this EA Origin Premium service where they are doing this type of thing. So I'll be very curious to see what happens with the other games EA has planned for later this year, whether or not it's going to be the same situation. But we'll see about that. But I mean, we'll see about Anthem next week. Obviously, those who watch videos on YouTube, I will warn you to be careful, because I'm pretty sure there's already spoilers out there, because people have the access to the game early. So if you're looking forward to Anthem, I would say avoid YouTube for a couple of days. But
Yeah, I think that adds to it as well. The fact that there's people streaming and putting up content, and people are just salty because it's like, people are like ruining the first player experience, and they just feel left out, I guess. Like, but
Yeah.
but yeah, because I saw like a influx of Anthem content on that day when the game went live, so I could imagine people being a bit salty just seeing all that Anthem content.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
But did you two guys pre-order Anthem? Can I expect to see you guys on
No, no, I did not care about Anthem, to be honest with you. The thing is that I never got on board with the hype with a lot of people, because keep in mind, when we were hearing about that game, a lot of us were either still playing Destiny 2 or a lot of us were still playing other games similar. I know Black Ops 4, obviously, big thing. And we saw that game. We saw Anthem even back at E3, if I remember correctly, as far as if I got my time frames right and stuff. But I was never really I never really felt that game, to be honest with you.
So to answer the question, I also understand where Mr. Lugo is coming from. I mean, I recall last year we went to EA Play and we couldn't even get into the actual conference. So
that's part of it too. I'm not gonna lie, that is part of it too.
Oh yeah, so I already had a bad taste in my mouth with EA, and based on that show, yeah, the show looked disappointing from what we did see, because I know me and Max went to go watch it at a nearby cafe, but I still am going to pick up Anthem only because I want to see why this game has a lot of hype behind it. I know a lot of people looked at it and we had the joke, this is Destiny 3, it looks like. So I'm curious to see what all the hype is about with this game. So I definitely will be getting it, but unfortunately, Gary, as you already know, I am going to be getting the gaming PC, but the game will be out by the time I get that PC. So I don't know if I'm going to get it on PC yet. So you might not see me on PC, but we'll see what happens.
Man, I will celebrate the day Rich finally gets his PC.
Yeah. Yeah, so in March for sure, I will be on PC with some games, but February, I don't know about that because it's going to take a while for me to get the system. But yeah, I will definitely check out Anthem. So looking forward to seeing. And next week we'll definitely have something to say about Anthem because we will both have played it. So I look forward to talking about it then and seeing whether or not the game is actually good. Yeah.
We'll all find out soon enough.
Absolutely. So, any other thoughts before we move on to the next topic?
No, let's move on. Okay.
So this next topic, I'm actually going to give the floor over to Mr. Lugo because I know that he saw it, but we finally found out about the Nintendo Direct that took place this past week. So feel free to let us know some of the highlights from that show, Mr. Lugo.
Yeah, sure. There was a lot of big things that happened, both good and bad big things all over the place. Some of which we knew what was coming because remember, we even talked about it, I believe, on the co-op at one point about the leaks for this Nintendo Direct that people were speculating about, and also the stuff that was posted up, I believe it was on Reset Era. So this is kind of like a good follow-up and a good follow-through with that type of stuff and that conversation we had. So overall, we had some big game reveals and big updates to some games that are going to be coming out very, very soon. So obviously, the show started off with Super Mario Maker 2, which I'm surprised they actually went with Super Mario Maker 2 and not just Super Mario Maker for Nintendo Switch. I think that's pretty cool. That's very telling about their awareness for the way that people were really talking about this game, or at least what the next iteration of Mario Maker was going to be. That's pretty cool. It's going to get a whole bunch of extra objects and other stuff, and I believe also additional things down the line towards June of this year. So if you're into Mario Maker, if you bought it on both Wii U and also 3DS, you might be down with this on Nintendo Switch because that's where the majority of people are going to be at, obviously. We also got some extra stuff for Smash Brothers Ultimate. We're getting the 3.0 update. We got a little bit of a little tease of Joker, which is the first big Smash Brothers DLC character that's going to be coming out for the game. I'm excited about that. You guys probably know that. I think I've talked about this with you guys in the past before, but I'm excited about that. And I'm curious to know by the time we get Joker, not only get him as a character, but also get his his stage, which we didn't get a hint of in this direct. But remember, every Smash Brothers character as DLC is going to have their own stage to come along with it, as well as also music. We didn't get any sort of like, hint of that, but I'm pretty sure we're going to see that very, very soon, because it's going to be coming out around the springtime, if I'm not mistaken. About March, right?
Quick question: whose palace do you think would be the main level?
I think it's gonna be either the first palace you go to out of Persona 5, or it's just gonna be a generic like amalgamation of them, because there's a lot of different places they could go with, but I think it's gonna be the first one with the teacher, the one for what is it, for not Risa, what is it, for Panther's palace, when you finally like go into her thing and deal with her story. Yeah. But either way, whatever that stage is going to be, I think it's going to be very stylized. It's going to be very cool, but I'm also really excited about the music. I'm really curious to know what they're going to do with the musical remixes, or if we're going to get Persona 5 music on top of other Persona music. That's what I think is going to be really exciting for that, on top of Joker being playable as a character, which I think is going to be a whole nother thing. We're going to get a trailer, I'm pretty sure, at some point, which is going to be nice. It's going to be really dope. Besides that, though, there's some other stuff from the direct. We got Box Boy and Box Girl. Not really my thing, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people love this. I think it was on Nintendo 3DS, if I'm not mistaken. They were getting a sequel to that game, and Box Boy and Box Girl, which is more puzzle platforming stuff, which is pretty cool. We're getting Captain Toad Treasure Tracker DLC, which is pretty cool. Extra levels and extra stuff with that game. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, they talked a little bit about. They showed a little bit of it. Not really a whole lot of stuff, but I'm excited about that game. You guys know I love Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and that was a really cool surprise to see at the Game Awards last year, at the end of last year, I should say. I'm looking forward to that. I can't wait to see more about that game. And then obviously the big one, better yet, no, I'll wait on the big one because there's a couple other ones in here that I'm looking at. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, that's finally coming out later this year towards, like, I want to say the summer, or at least the fall, fall to summer, or summer to fall of 2019. Finally, we're getting at least a window of when this game might be dropping on all platforms, which is great. You guys know I got a chance to play Bloodstained Ritual of the Night back at E3. I think it was 2 years ago, when we finally went to E3. I played it on Xbox One, though. I don't know if you guys got a chance to dive into any of the other demo stuff with Bloodstained, Rich and Gary, but when I played it, it was pretty cool. I got to play it with Iga-san, which was nice. The game is shaping up to be very interesting. I'm curious to see what other stuff has changed about that game since I first laid hands on it. But I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it runs on Nintendo Switch, because I know a lot of people are probably thinking about getting this on PlayStation 4, but I think it's going to be really cool to play this game on Nintendo Switch. So besides that, they talked a little bit about Tetris 99, which released that day. And people, myself included, have been playing it nonstop. It's been pretty awesome. Again, it's that same type of battle royal gameplay design philosophy, but kind of applying it to the Tetris philosophy, which is just, again, straightforward puzzle gameplay where people are constantly doing stuff. And now you're throwing 99 people going up against each other like that. So when I've been playing, I've been scoring pretty high in like the low teens or like the high 20s as far as ranking. So that's pretty cool. But they also talked about a couple other games, and the big focus of the entire direct, which wasn't the mic drop moment, but it was a really kind of main topic of the show, was Fire Emblem Three Houses. We got a little bit of a better look at Fire Emblem Three Houses. We got some, obviously, characters, cutscenes, gameplay stuff, which looks pretty damn cool. I know a lot of people, myself included, that are into Fire Emblem like that are really looking forward to this. Again, I want to get more details about the story and like a couple other stuff and some of the other things, including some of the bonds that you could form, because that's become a thing in the later Fire Emblem games of more recent, including Fire Emblem Awakening and Fire Emblem Fates. And I think also Fire Emblem Warriors has something similar, if I'm not mistaken, because I never played Warriors, but that's been a thing for the Fire Emblem games now. And I want to know how all that's going to be implemented into Three Houses. It's a Fire Emblem game for Nintendo Switch. I know a lot of people are tired of the series, especially with Smash Brothers and the mobile game and all that stuff, but it's a very big series for Nintendo, especially in Japan. And I doubt we're going to see any less of it anytime soon. A couple other things I do want to mention before I get to the big one, which I really want to touch on. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is coming to Switch, which is awesome. That game is really good from a lot of people that have played it have told me. A lot of people are going to play this on Switch. Again, if you haven't played Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, it was a whole big there was a whole big what to do about it with mental health, and it was a really kind of interesting game that had something to say, which I think is pretty cool. And now people that have Nintendo Switch can now play it on the go, which is great. Deltarune is also coming. The first chapter of Deltarune is coming February 28th at the end of this month. It's a Nintendo Switch, and and that chapter is going to be free. And then other chapters are going to come later on. I'm guessing every single month we're probably going to get a new chapter as they release That's pretty cool. They also talked a little bit about Yoshi's Crafted Worlds, which is the sequel to Yoshi's Woolly World. Looks good, looks cute, still looks freaking cute. Again, looks very cuddly overall. If you can't look at Yoshi's Woolly Worlds or any of the Yoshi style, Yarn Yoshi style games and not just smile, there's just a cuteness to it that's very gravitating. And then finally, also Final Fantasy IX and Final Fantasy VII coming to Nintendo Switch. And I think they even talked about Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon, which is also coming to the Nintendo Switch, I believe in March. Now, funny enough, everybody keeps saying, myself included, where's Final Fantasy VIII? Now, I did get some weird kind of unconfirmed clarification about why Final Fantasy VIII's having problems, with Square Enix, or at least why Square Enix is having problems with Final Fantasy VIII importing it to places like Nintendo Switch and elsewhere. It has something to do, I think, with the licensing for some of the music, which I believe is Eyes on Me, which is specifically the track Eyes on Me. Now, that's unconfirmed. Again, I don't have any insider info. I was only told this through another person that's probably like talking to other people that know better than I do. But that seems to be the general message about what's going on with Final Fantasy VIII. But 7 and 9 are coming to the Nintendo Switch. I know later on this year, we're going to get 10 and 12, the Zodiac Age. So 10 and 10-2 HD Remaster and Final Fantasy 12, the Zodiac Age are also coming to the Nintendo Switch. That's pretty cool. And we're getting Chocobo Mystery Dungeon on Nintendo Switch. And we're getting Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles on Nintendo Switch very soon, I believe. I think it's in the next couple months. I want to say late springtime into the summer. I don't remember the exact time frame, but that's a lot of good Square Enix stuff that's coming, man. Now, on top of that, there was some other stuff as well. There were some other games that they did dive into, which, again, I don't have it listed here. But there was a couple other reveals. Platinum Games next game. I can't remember the name. If you guys, Rich or Gary, you could find that, because there was that, and there was also the game that was done by the studio who did I Am Setsuna, which is an action RPG that looked dope, but I can't remember its name right now. And I want to make sure that we tell our listeners, if you guys could look that up in a second. But while you guys are looking that up, let's talk about the big reveal.
Was it Astral Chain? Astral Chain, I think is
that the Platinum game? That's the Platinum Games one?
Yeah,
Astral
Platinum
Chain?
Games. Yeah.
Okay, now, and also find out the other one that was done by the I Am Setsuna group, which is the action RPG, because Astral Chain looks pretty cool. I think that game is going to have some co-op capabilities with it, because there's 2 characters that are in that trailer that they're really kind of like focusing on and stuff. I think that's going to be very, very interesting. And again, the next game from Hideki Kamiya, who's the guy who created Bayonetta. I mean, that guy, again, his resume speaks for itself, and a lot of people are very excited about it, myself included. So while you're looking for that other game, and I do want to talk about, obviously, the big reveal, which is the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening remake for Nintendo Switch. Now, it's just called the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. And funny enough, a lot of people notice that the typeface for the logo and a lot of the other stuff that they have on there is the same typeface that they're using for Breath of the Wild. So there's a little bit of like influence there going on with Nintendo and stuff. But this is a remake of Link's Awakening. And the way it looks, the very brief look that we got there. We got an anime cutscene at the very beginning, which I think looks awesome. I think that's cool. If all the cutscenes in that remake are like that, I'm totally down with it. The gameplay looks a little bit more cutesy and kiddie compared to the Legend of Zelda Link Between Worlds, which also had the same type of like cartoony art style to it, but this one a little bit more so. And I think it works for Link's Awakening. I think it works for this style of game. Again, it's a different Zelda game, completely different, obviously, and removed from the style we get from Breath of the Wild, but it still falls in line with that cartoony, fun, whimsical, fantastical take on a Zelda game. And I'm really down with that. I'm really excited. I think it's cool. Link's Awakening is one of those classic games from the Game Boy era. Again, if you played Link's Awakening or Link's Awakening Deluxe or DX, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. It's going to be very cool to see a lot of those moments from that game be reimagined for a modern era. And I think that's going to be awesome. It's the same thing, but even more so than what we got with Link Between Worlds, which the Link Between Worlds, for anybody that didn't know or didn't play it, was a little bit of like a pseudo remake of A Link to the Past, which I still think we're going to get other Zelda games at some point that have this kind of like remake treatment to it. And I would be really, really curious if this one does successful. Link's Awakening does very successful on Nintendo Switch, what is the next one that we get? I would love to see the Oracle games get remade. I think because those games were done by Capcom, they had a high quality on the Game Boy Color. It'd be very cool to see those games revisited again. It'd be really, really interesting. But I'm excited about that. Gary, did you find out that other game from the I Am Setsuna people or not?
Yes, Oninaki.
Oniniki, I think that's how you pronounce it.
Oniniki, yeah, something like that. I apologize for butchering it, but yeah, that's the name of the game.
Yeah, that game, okay, besides Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, is another game I'm excited for because that's done by the same team over at Square Enix that made I Am Setsuna, and it's an action RPG, and their games, I think it's Tokyo RPG Factory, I think is the full name of them, where they make a lot of like old school takes on like Japanese role-playing games that have a lot more of that retro style instilled to them. Like if you love games that are very, very deep with their story and character oriented and get more into what you would find with like a Chrono Trigger or like one of the earlier Final Fantasy games, that studio knows all about that stuff. And it's going to be curious and interesting to see how they translate that type of stuff into, instead of a turn-based RPG gameplay, into active time or pretty much action RPG gameplay. So I'm looking forward to it. Those are at least my picks for some of the cool stuff that we got from that Nintendo Direct. But, you know, what do you guys think about all that stuff? There's a lot in there to unpack.
Yeah, I'm excited by anything Square Enix do. So that new RPG, I'm looking forward to seeing what people think of that. It's cool that everyone will get to experience, all those old Final Fantasy games too, but I'm sure those are available on every system. So, I mean, if you haven't played them yet, then what are you doing? And I'm also intrigued by Mario Maker 2, because I want to see, where how far they take the approach this time around with that game. But yeah, I mean, everything else looks cool. But, Nintendo isn't like my system of choice, of course, but there's a few things that intrigue me here and there. And I know that it's a great console to get if you love JRPGs. And I do love JRPGs. So sometime in the future, I will get a Switch. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah. As for me, I did have a Switch. I don't have a Switch anymore. I definitely need to get a Switch once again. But Fire Emblem is a series that I have been interested in getting into. So I definitely will make sure that I jump into that as soon as I get a Switch. Yeah, definitely that announcement I did like to hear. The Zelda announcement, I understand why that's a big deal, because I know that Nintendo definitely wants to do more Zelda games, especially after the massive reception that Breath of the Wild got. So glad to hear about the Zelda game. I definitely would check that out as well. And there's a lot of games that they did announce that I'm interested in as a whole. Some of the more independent games, and then there's one game in particular, because I know that I will give a shout out to Mr. Adam Bale. One game that he put me on to that I definitely do intend to check out. That's called Modern Combat Blackout. It's pretty much looks like a Call of Duty type of game on the Switch, but I saw some gameplay from that the other day, and that game looks absolutely fantastic. I'm very curious to see how it looks close up on the Switch. But yeah, pretty much all of the games that was mentioned in that Direct, definitely interested in a lot of those games. So I definitely need to get a Switch ASAP so I can try out all these new experiences. And I will at least definitely make sure I have it by the time Fire Emblem comes out, so I can see what that's all about.
There's something I think I should also mention before I forget, which I think was also a topic of discussion right before the Nintendo Direct came out, because a lot of people thought this is what we were going to get at some point, but we didn't. Metroid Prime Trilogy HD on Nintendo Switch, or Metroid Prime Trilogy for Switch. Now, here's the thing about this, and I think I said this on social media afterwards. I think that's still ready to go. I know a couple other people say that they believe that's already ready to go, and that's going to be a thing. I think we're going to get that, especially right before Metroid Prime 4 comes out. But I think this was the wrong time to reveal it, and I'm glad that if that was the case, they didn't show that, because obviously the previous news not too long ago, which I think we talked about on this podcast, Metroid Prime 4 is getting its development pushed back, that they're going back to the drawing board and doing more things with that, which I think is great. I'm pretty sure come E3, we'll see more about that game at some point. But I think now, for this Direct, this wasn't the right time to talk about that in light of all that stuff happening prior. I think that if that development was still going well and like they were moving much more further ahead rather than redoing stuff, we probably would have heard about it by now. I think that come E3 time, when we go see the Nintendo Direct there, during online and stuff, I think that's when we're finally start to hear about it, and in light also, or at least alongside a reveal of Metroid Prime 4. That makes more sense to me like that.
Oh yeah. I definitely agree. And I'll also add that Nintendo has to save some surprises for the E3 show. So pretty sure we'll definitely hear about that again. Definitely before the year is over. So,
I think that we're going to get another direct as we get closer to the release of Joker for Smash, which I think is when we also might get a tease for what the next character might be. But I think we're going to get a ton more come E3 this year.
oh yeah, definitely. I certainly agree. I certainly agree. But overall, I would say an excellent direct. I did have to watch most of it at a later time. Wasn't able to see it live, but I have
this
to
was
say,
totally worth the wait, though. I think it was definitely worth the wait. I don't know if it lived up to as much as the hype, but there was some cool moments in this direct. Not gonna lie.
oh yeah. I mean, I'm always excited to see what Nintendo does. So I'm looking forward to seeing what else they announce as the year goes on. And as I said, definitely will make sure I pick up a Switch soon so I can try out some of these other games. But overall, I think that was the full wrap up of the direct. So thank you for definitely informing everybody who might have missed it. Definitely a lot of fun things to look forward to. So on that note, I guess we'll move on to the next topic. Now, this topic, obviously, this is kind of like it's two different topics. They're both related to Sony. So first and foremost, let's address the first one. Gary, I believe you know a little bit more about this particular story, but we'll just say that Shawn Layden, obviously DICE is going on this past week, and Shawn Layden did do a couple of different interviews talking about Sony. I know there in one of those interviews he mentioned that Sony wants to focus on releasing fewer big titles every year. This is why we know Days Gone. They said that's coming out around April 26th, I believe. We haven't heard any release dates for the other titles yet, which I'm pretty sure will change. But also in that same interview, he did mention that Sony is now open to cross-play. But as the story that Gary is talking about, there was one developer of a recently released indie title called Wargrove said that when they tried to do cross-play for their game earlier this year, because it came out I think a couple of weeks ago, Sony told them no. So Gary, please feel free to tell us more about this particular story, where it came from, and what the issue is going on here between Sony and cross-play.
Yeah, well, you kind of summed it up yourself. So basically, when Shawn Layden was asked, about crossplay on PS4, his stance was basically like, people keep saying, why doesn't Sony allow more people to have it? And then he went on to say, we're actually open for business on this. Like, we're just waiting for the publishers to approach us with a good plan, and something that's beneficial, and basically all that. There's actually a quote I could read. So he said, people keep saying, why doesn't Sony allow more people to have it? We're open for business. All it takes is for publishers and developers who wish to permission it. As ever, I work with your PlayStation account manager, and they will walk you through the steps, what we've learned through our partnership with Epic on how this works. So that was basically what he said. And then, like you said, the developer came back and said, basically when they tried to get their game approved for crossplay on PS4, Sony said no. So conflicting information there from both sides. And if I give my own opinion on this, I really don't think Sony wants crossplay, to be honest with you. Like, I think they're going to try and sidestep it unless there's a specific deal or, something that really benefits them. Like, there has to be a reason for them to want to allow crossplay to happen. Obviously, we already know it's possible because Epic slipped up and made it work. I think it's just, Sony does not want their network to connect to, Xbox and PC. Like, they don't want to give gamers incentive to get on other platforms. They want everyone to be within their own platform and their own ecosystem. So I think that's the philosophy they have. But Shawn Layden, people are kind of forcing him on this crossplay issue, and he doesn't want to appear like he's not for the people. So I think he's kind of dancing a little bit. He's kind of dancing around the subject. But I do feel eventually this has to happen, though. because people are going to be on their case until crossplay is a thing. So between Xbox and PlayStation and PC. So this is going to be reoccurring. So Shawn Layden has to be prepared to deal with this all the time until they allow it. Me and JJ were having a conversation about this before the show started, and JJ brought up the fact that there probably needs to be more incentives for Sony, so that they're profiting from this, being a thing. And I agree, like Sony, they want to know that it's going to be beneficial for them if it happens. Whereas, Microsoft, the reality of the situation is that they're not the top brand this generation, like, in terms of consoles. So they have to play ball. They have to give gamers what they want. They have to allow crossplay because, it's something that makes their system more appealing, ultimately. So, they're in a position where they have to allow this, whereas Sony has sold, like, what's the tally at the moment? Over 100 million or something PS4s. So, they're in a position where they don't want to, open up crossplay. But as we go into a new generation of consoles, obviously the PS5 and the next Xbox are coming very soon. I think crossplay is going to be a standard next generation. Like, I think every console is going to have crossplay. Like, it's going to be a thing, especially as we move towards this big esports / Twitch streaming, world that we're in now. Like, I think it's going to be very important that there's parity between the systems and that they're all able to play together. So, that's my thoughts on it. But what do you guys think?
Honestly, if again, just random thoughts, and again, based off the convo we had earlier before, I think it's a lot has to do with money exchange, and also just the idea that people would buy the microtransaction stuff, like the cosmetic stuff for like games like Fortnite and other things on the respective platform that they don't have to actually dive into on the PlayStation Network. So I think that, at least, again, it's very unconfirmed, and that's really just talk between various different people and various different sources I've read up on and such. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, because why would you want to have your platform interact with another platform like that when you could have them come over here and buy all their type of stuff, or even buy the game and like other things related to it on your own platform? The difference is, and I don't necessarily agree with you entirely that Microsoft necessarily has to play nice and actually get in on this. I think it's to their benefit, though. I think it's to only work for them, I should say, not work against them, especially since Sony is kind of taking this stance, and Nintendo doesn't seem to have a problem with it at all. I think right now, Nintendo Switch owners and Xbox One owners could play with each other, right, on games like Fortnite. I could be wrong, but the thing is that I think that over time, and I think sometime very soon as we go through 2019 to 2020, I think that Sony is going to buckle under the pressure. I think that now that you're starting to have developers start to come out and openly talk about this and be like, yo, Sony, like, come on, like, let's be real here. Let's do this. I think that developers really want to do this. And it's Sony that's kind of putting the red tape there because of things behind the scenes that we just don't know fully about. Even though, again, some of the stuff that I mentioned and such, I think that eventually we're going to get the full story, because I think somebody's going to be brazen enough to openly talk about it, outside of what we got from what Shawn Layden was saying here and some of the other developers and other studios that have been talking about this in weird kind of like passive aggressive ways. But I really think that all this stuff is going to come at some point. It's going to be because Sony buckles underneath the pressure a little bit from developers specifically talking with them, and maybe even doing other things for the other platforms because of that. It could be a game of chess for them, or at least for some people with some of this stuff. I don't really see the downside for us as gamers and consumers for something like this. I don't think there's anything that's really inherently bad for us to be able to play games, big games like Fortnite or other games. Like, imagine being able to play Call of Duty across all three platforms like that, or get matched up with people across all three platforms, or games like Destiny 2, or games like Halo. Well, not necessarily Halo, because Halo's not going to be on other platforms, but like a lot of the big third-party games, or even, again, different genres besides first-person shooters. Mortal Kombat is going to be on everything for the most part. Imagine that, having cross-platform where you have that wider pool of people. That's going to be great. And I think a lot of people see the potential in that, but there's probably just some other stuff that we just don't know about. That's probably legal red tape or monetary red tape that at least Sony cares about enough to take this stance for so long.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, I agree with all the points that both of you guys have made so far. I just think right now Sony is in a position where, again, they're listening to the fans, and they realize because Nintendo and Xbox have been so open about crossplay and making it this something where they have made it a point to say in the message, yes, we're doing this stuff. Now Sony does feel a little bit of the pressure that they have to do this. So, I mean, it's fine for them to do it. I just think right now they're listening to the fans because they want to, again, maintain the position that they are. I mean, they are the number one. I mean, they have dominated this whole generation, you know, obviously with the console sold, so on and so forth. So as the top dog, definitely anything that you can do to continue to keep fan interest at the top, you know, you definitely have to do it. So this is just a business decision. So it's good that they are open to doing cross-play. As for the games that would allow this feature, I haven't really seen any of the major big publishers do this stuff yet. I mean, a lot of the, you know, Fortnite, obviously, yeah, they're doing that with Fortnite. But I haven't seen any of these other major games, like the games that JJ mentioned. That hasn't happened yet. So I guess once that happens, then I guess you could say, okay, it is a major big deal. But it hasn't happened with Call of Duty yet, or any of these other major titles yet. So I don't really know how big of a deal it is. But for Sony to open up and say that they definitely will do it is good for those that are concerned about that type of stuff. So that's totally fine with me. One other thing I want to mention, because again, this is on the same topic of Sony, is that they also announced this week that Jim Ryan is now the new president / CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment. Now, if that name doesn't sound familiar to you guys out there, this is the same guy that made the comment about when they was asking about backwards compatibility, and he said that he didn't really understand the value or why that is such an important feature, where there already was rumors of a patent that Sony is working on to implement backwards compatibility into PS5. So the whole thing with backwards compatibility is, I think we've said a couple of times on this show, yeah, they definitely will have that also. I think on the next console, I think you have to have it just as an option, because PlayStation Now, not necessarily something that everybody's going to want to jump onto nor pay for. So I think him now being in charge of Sony Interactive Entertainment and making the stance of they're definitely going to focus on backwards compatibility, I think this is a good thing, because once again, in business, you see that your competitor is doing this, so you definitely should have some type of option to really be more competitive on that level. Because again, PlayStation Now, I mean, I haven't used the service. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other people we know who have used it. Some enjoy it, but I just think it's just something that should already be built into the system to have backwards compatibility. So this could be a good thing, because I think they need to do this, and they need to also offer crossplay for those that are interested in these features. So wanted to get you guys' thoughts on Jim Ryan now taking on this role and what it could mean for Sony moving forward.
I don't think anybody should use that comment against him like that. I think that it's an exciting thing because, you know, it could be interesting to see like what other stuff he'll bring to the table, especially now that PS5 is going to be a thing eventually. I think that's coming at some point. It's not a secret at this point in time. But as far as the backwards compatibility thing, I think he was making that comment because him and the rest of Sony were probably looking at stuff that we just don't have access to, that a lot of people, again, on social media and other places probably are very open and vocal about that. And again, I think it worked to Microsoft's favor to be able to figure how that stuff would work out and actually make that into a thing for their platform. And I do believe that PS5 is probably going to have a much more bigger emphasis on backwards compatibility, especially with PlayStation 4 stuff, since, again, so many people have dived into that platform. It'd be interesting to see how far back that goes. There's been talk about certain patents and certain things being passed around where you'll be able to be, with PS5, go backwards compatible all the way to PS1 titles, which would be very interesting if that's true. It'd be very crazy. But that being said, however, I think that moreover, we should look at it as that, again, he's someone that's been with the company, especially in the European sector of PlayStation, at least at some events and stuff. It's been reported he's been like the face of PlayStation over there. While we had like people like Shuhei Yoshida and Shawn Layden, he was over there doing stuff for PlayStation and the European side of things. But I'm curious to see like what happens with him. It'd be kind of cool. I wish that they were going to E3 this year, because then that would have been his first event as president CEO. But apparently not, since they're not going to be over there. Maybe if they get a PSX this year, it'll be kind of cool to see like what he brings to the table, what he talks about it, what PlayStation is like by the time that actually rolls in. But who knows? You know, we'll probably hear about something soon, especially with, again, new consoles going to be over the horizon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty sure Sony will. There may be some type of show this year, if I had to make a guess, but not being at E3, yeah, that's I'm very curious to see how that will impact, what that will mean for the future. But Gary, you have any thoughts on Jim Ryan taking over as the new president CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment?
Yeah, I don't think he should be, crucified for that statement he made a while ago, because I feel like there's, executives that have made worse statements and survived, the backlash and stuff. So, I don't think people should criticize him still for that comment. And congratulations to him for, the new position and everything. And I do want to see what he brings to the table in terms of the future of PlayStation, and whether, he'll have any influence over PlayStation now and backwards compatibility moving forward. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I got to say, to be honest. Don't have too much.
Yes. Sounds good. So, I mean, that pretty much covers the news for Sony as far as the business side is. We'll definitely see what happens in the future as far as how both of these guys, how Jim Ryan impacts the brand, and obviously what happens with crossplay moving forward. But definitely a lot to look forward to and really ponder as we eventually will hear news, I'm assuming, about PS5. So
yeah,
stay tuned.
shouts to Wesley in the chat. He said Jim Ryan is the stern parent over there at Sony. He don't take no mess and gets things done.
Well, that's good. That's great news to hear. Hey, well, looking forward to seeing what he does moving forward. Okay, so we probably should address this other quick topic before we get to the main topic. Let's talk about a couple. There was a story that I saw. I wanted to mention this briefly, so we don't need to spend a lot of time on this. But Ubisoft, apparently, they had a fiscals call recently. Obviously, they're doing well sales-wise, so that's not really what the story is. The story is that there currently are 3 unannounced games that they have slated to come out between April 2019 and early 2020. So I wanted to get you guys quick thoughts on what you think those games are, because they said, well, actually, to use the actual quote, it's going to be 3 to 4 AAA games that are going to be released between this upcoming April and March of 2020. So I wanted to get you guys quick thoughts as to what you think those 3 to 4 games are. I do have some thoughts as to what they are, but obviously I want to hear you guys' opinions first. So, Gary, would you like to go first
Yeah.
on what your thoughts are?
Yeah, so are these unannounced games or games that could have already been announced but we don't know when they're releasing?
Well, for right now, they could already be announced games.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't really specify if it's unannounced, but there are some games we already know are in development, so I'm pretty sure that you can definitely count those.
Okay. Now, to be honest, I don't remember which games do have release dates, but if I'm going for 4 titles that I think are going to be released within the next year, from April to next April, I think Skull and Bones, and I think what was they didn't announce a Splinter Cell, right? Or
They
did
didn't
they?
announce
No,
it yet.
no.
Okay. There was another game they announced, but I don't remember.
That was the one with Elijah Wood, right? That game that we saw when we went to the E3 conference for them.
You're
I was
talking
thinking
about you're talking about Transcendence?
is that what's it called? Yeah.
Yeah, that game is actually already out.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it came out last year, towards the end of last year.
Is there a no? Is there a new Ghost Recon? I can't remember. Like, I can't remember what
Or
they
Rainbow
still have.
Six stuff, maybe like for Rainbow Six Siege or something, or like sequel to it. I have no idea.
I
No,
don't remember, but
they've just been supporting that game up to this point. I think I haven't really seen anything else.
okay.
Um,
Well, I think Beyond Good and Evil might be coming, but that will probably be more towards spring next year, I think.
yeah,
Because
that makes
they
sense.
have the Division 2, which is coming out this year, springtime. So I think Beyond Good and Evil would be like the big spring game for next year. So yeah, I think that, and possibly Watch Dogs 3, if they announce Watch Dogs 3 maybe at E3 and then it comes out in the fall or something.
Yeah,
So and I'm not sure about a fourth, to be honest. But those are three things that I think. That game Wilds, was that Ubisoft or was it like a different publisher?
that Wilds. You're talking about the game
I know
they
what you're
showed.
going to talk about. I don't think that was Ubisoft though,
Oh,
honestly.
okay. It was just the
That,
guy from Ubisoft, right? Like,
yeah, the game they showed at Sony's conference a while back.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Uh,
You know what? I have no idea what's going on with that game.
Michael Ansel, right? That's the guy's name or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That game is probably coming after. Well, it's definitely not. I think it's a Sony game, but it's not coming. Probably not coming until after Beyond Good and Evil. I mean, I don't know what's going on with that game. We haven't seen anything else since they showed that video of it.
Right.
So, we'll see. Let me go real quick, and then I'm going to go to Mr. Lugo. Watch Dogs 3, they have been teasing this game for a while. They have been very actively talking about giving hints about the game. So that's probably going to get announced at E3, this year, and that'll probably be out by the fall. I do think Splinter Cell has been in development. We just haven't really heard anything about the game. So that is probably another game that you're going to hear about, and that'll probably be coming in the fall. And then as for the others, Skull and Bones, that's definitely coming this year. We played it last year at E3. They didn't really announce a release date. They just said 2019. So that's definitely one of the games that I do expect to come out. They did say there's going to be no Assassin's Creed this year. So I don't think we're going to see that for a while, which is good. They do need to take a break with that series. So I'm totally fine with that. And if I had to pick one more game, I don't know, but for some reason, I do know that that I have heard rumors, nothing confirmed, that Nintendo was obviously working with Ubisoft on possibly doing more content for that Mario Rabbids game. So there could be another one of those games coming also down, eventually. And of course, Just Dance, the game that comes out every year, Just Dance. But those are the only things I could think of at the moment. So, Mr. Lugo, did you have anything that you would like to add?
I think that the Mario and Rabbids thing, that was actually one of the things I wanted to say, because I really believe that's a game that not only did a big splash, and I think it sold pretty well, and they have a really great relationship with Nintendo for that series. So I think that we're going to get another one of those. And I think also possibly from that at some point, maybe talk about another Starlink-like game, but for Star Fox. Because I know Starlink is getting more Star Fox content with Falco and Peppy and a couple other stuff in relation to that game that's like extra bonus DLC. I think they talked briefly about that on the last Direct that just happened, or posted up some videos on YouTube and stuff. But as far as like just focusing on Ubisoft, besides that, I think that Skull and Bones is a safe bet, because I'm pretty sure I saw a thing that said 2019. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get that towards like the summer or like towards the end of 2019 as like one of those other games that just gets put out there alongside other stuff. I still think also that Splinter Cell is coming. I always say that every year, and it's like, again, we all get proven wrong. But I feel like that's a thing that's been worked on or being worked on for a very long time. And like we just haven't heard or really seen anything official or concrete about that. As far as Watch Dogs, I don't know. I'm a little indifferent about Watch Dogs. I would have to read up more about that, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's another game that gets announced officially at E3 this year. Now, one other thing I think we also should acknowledge besides that is also Rayman. And, granted, I said Mario and Rabbids might be a thing. I think we're also going to get a new Rayman game at some point. I feel like that's a thing. And here's the thing. The reason why I say that is because keep in mind, Smash Brothers is getting a couple other characters that haven't appeared in a Smash Brothers game in an official capacity like that is playable and stuff. And I think that the relationship with Ubisoft is too hard to ignore like that. And I think that we're going to get Rayman in that game. And I think that's also going to be an indication of another Rayman game being worked on, or at least, you know, in the process of being worked on. Because remember, those two Rayman games that were released, those kind of like, you know, what was it? Rayman Legends, or just, I think it's Rayman. I forgot what the first one was. I know Rayman Legends was the sequel that was on Wii U and a bunch of other platforms and stuff. But those games were pretty successful and critically acclaimed at one point, if I'm not mistaken. But as far as, so if I had to really choose four, I would say Skull and Bones. I would say possibly Splinter Cell. I would say the Mario and Rabbids game, whatever that might be. And I think also we're probably going to get a new Rayman. I think those are safe bets to kind of bank on. And I think the majority of that's going to get revealed at E3 this year for either the end of the year or leading into the following year for 2020.
I think those are all good bets, because I completely forgot about Rayman. So yeah, that's all sounds doable. And one final thing I will mention, because I believe Gary, you mentioned Ghost Recon. I did pull up a report. You know, Ghost Recon Wildlands launched in March of last year. So by 2020, there probably will be another one, if I had to make a guess. So that may be coming next spring, if Beyond Good and Evil. Because again, I don't know how far in development Beyond Good and Evil 2
I don't think we're getting Beyond Good and Evil, to be honest with you. I think that's the one game is, even though we've seen it and I want it like the rest of you guys, I don't think that's coming anytime soon. I don't even think we get it in 2020, to be honest with you.
That's probably a next generation game. PS5 and whatever the next Xbox is. But we'll see.
I will be very surprised if we go into E3 this year and they say that game is coming out at the end of the year. I'll be very surprised, because I feel like we've seen a little bit of it. We've seen gameplay of it that they showed at their conference when we were there. But I don't think it's that far along to the point where it's like, okay, near completion, or even within the next year and a half. I think that's a little bit like end 2020 to 2021. Personally, again, that's me being like, you know, lenient with it.
Yeah, well, I definitely don't think it's coming this year either. But definitely much later. Because again, I think even though we've seen some stuff, I think that game still is a ways away from release. But I will say this: we've seen more of that than we have seen of Death Stranding. So we'll see.
That's another game I don't think we're getting on PS4 at all.
Oh no. I know Gary can't wait to play it though, so he that's a day one purchase for him.
Yep, day one indeed.
Yeah. So on that note, now let's move on to the final topic of today's show. And I will give a shout out to Mr. Edward V in the chat, because he was unable to speak to us today about this game. I see him complaining. So let's talk about Crackdown 3. I know that Edward has played Crackdown and he has said the game is trash. So, and this is someone who obviously goes hard for Xbox all the time. So if he's complaining about it, I said, okay, that's interesting. But Crackdown 3, the game released this past Friday on the 15th with all of these other titles. And the game has been getting some pretty horrible reviews across the board. Now, there are some
getting eviscerated straight up. Like, you got to tell how it is. It's been getting eviscerated by a lot of the reviews.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, I do know that there are some people that I do know that we are friends with as well that have been playing the game. They think the game is okay. They think the game is fine. You know, obviously the main complaints have been, you know, it doesn't really feel like it brings anything new to the table. Like if you played the original Crackdown, it feels pretty much exactly like that game. Like there's nothing really new, and you can tell that it's outdated, which obviously are a lot of issues with it. But I guess the question that Gary wanted to ask is, should people be so hard on it because it is a Microsoft title, because it is in Game Pass, and because it maybe doesn't quite meet the standards that it needs to be to meet for an actual Xbox title? So that's a good question to ask Gary. So I'm going to ask you to give your answer first on this particular topic.
Okay, so I want to play devil's advocate a bit here, because I mean, let me first of all be clear that I'm in no rush at all to play Crackdown 3. Like, it's just not something I think about right now. But I do want to play devil's advocate here because what I'm hearing about this game, and when I think back to my experience playing the first Crackdown, you know, as I understand it, Crackdown 3 is just mindless fun. Like it's you know, it's a throwback to old gaming where you just get on it, you go around shooting, destroying stuff, and you know, beating missions and objectives, and there's no real deep meaning or story to it. It's just, you know, a fun game to play and not really think too much about. And that's really how a lot of old school gaming was. Like, it's like you just get on, you blow some stuff up, you know, and go about your day, you know. So it seems to be that kind of game. And I enjoyed the first Crackdown because of that, because it was just a fun little game to put on, not think too much about. I could probably, you know, if I'm listening to an audio book or a podcast or something, I can do that while I'm playing the game. You know, sometimes those kind of games are cool to have, you know, where you don't have to really, because there's so many cinematic experiences out nowadays where it's like, okay, I have to really concentrate hard on this game, even though I'm tired from work and, you know, I've got all this stuff going on around the house and there's all these distractions, you know. It can be hard to go from, you know, cinematic experience to cinematic experience. So sometimes a game like this where you don't have to think, you just blow stuff up is cool. You know, it's fine. So I want to play devil's advocate and say, you know, if that's what you want and that's what your expectations are, then I don't see a problem with the game. Because when I think about, I think it was Saints Row 4 or 5. I think it was 4. Saints Row 4, which is the one where, you know, your character becomes the president and then it becomes this crazy sci-fi superhero type of game. That game was actually super fun, even though the story made no sense and I just, like, it was so stupid I didn't care about the story at all anymore. But the actual gameplay was just so fun because you could run around, run up on buildings, destroy stuff. Like, there was a lot of crazy stuff you could do in that game, and I enjoyed it because of that. Like, I almost, like, got all of the achievements on Steam for that game. Like, I enjoyed it that much. So, you know, if it's that kind of game, it has a place, you know. I just feel like people were putting too much expectations on the game because it is an exclusive for Xbox and there hasn't been many exclusive games for Xbox recently. So anything that does come out for Xbox that's exclusive is going to have a lot of expectations and a lot of eyeballs and a lot of attention on it, you know. So whatever they put out at this point needs to blow people away for them to have confidence in the Xbox brand. And this was just, you know, a kind of average game to just have a few hours of fun with, you know. It wasn't anything more than that. So I think that's why people started trashing the game and, you know, talking all that stuff about it. But I think there is a place for Crackdown 3 to some people. It's just the fact that it wasn't, because you have to remember as well, when they first announced this game in like 2013, they made it look like a big deal as well. Like, they oversold this game. They ended up changing a lot of stuff, and then, you know, we had to wait, what is it, like 6 or 7 years before it finally came out. So some of the blame is on Microsoft too, because they oversold the game initially. But I mean, you know, if you just look at it what it is and appreciate it for what it is, I don't think there's a problem. But yeah, it's just the fact that Xbox is where they're at now, you know, and there's not a lot of exclusives that come out. So that's my take on it.
All right, I do have a few thoughts. I'm gonna go to you first, Mr. Lulu. Do you have any thoughts on Crackdown 3?
Yeah, I kind of skimmed through some of the reviews that were getting posted up, both on Metacritic and elsewhere, and it seems like not only I think Crackdown 3 is a victim of not only the change in taste and preferences for a lot of places and just gamers in general right now at the current moment. But I think also that the expectations for Crackdown 3 to actually be a thing for the Xbox ecosystem, I think was a victim under its own weight. Because keep in mind, we kept seeing Crackdown 3 for like the longest time and just, again, delay after delay. And the fact that, you know, we were hoping for it to be a certain thing for Xbox One that ultimately ended up not being. Now, again, I haven't played Crackdown 3. I've never really looked at a lot of gameplay outside of what we saw at different events and stuff. But from the way that people are talking about Crackdown 3. It seems that it's very generic in its approach to a lot of stuff that we've seen like years ago, without any sort of like, you know, changes to kind of like adapt for a lot of stuff what we got right now. Like obviously a lot of the people, one of the reviews I was reading up was saying that the majority of the time they ended up using a few weapons out of all the weapons that are available to you in Crackdown 3. They used them from the very beginning of the game all the way throughout to killing the final boss. Now, I understand that could be a little bit annoying, especially when you have all this stuff open to you to kind of like mess around with and such. It feels like, you know, it's not utilizing its full potential. And the same thing also goes for collecting things around in the large city, or like, you know, the lack of like, you know, real using of the space or like the set pieces that you have for that. There's a lot of different things that I feel like what Gary was saying is a product of the time from back then, especially like early Xbox 360 titles or like midway Xbox 360 titles being somewhat similar to that. But things have obviously changed over the last couple of years since Crackdown 3 was first announced. Like there's been a lot of changes overall with a lot of different things that we've seen other studios and other titles, big AAA titles, do at this point. And I think just our expectations have changed. So it kind of sucks because, I mean, what can really that team really do with all the stuff that happens with Xbox One and a lot of the other stuff that happens with just the Xbox ecosystem? What are they really going to do? So maybe even if there's like another Crackdown, or maybe there's just a different type of game that team can work on, things will be a little bit different. But it is what it is, you know, and just seems to be like people just don't like Crackdown 3. They just think it's kind of meh.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. So my thoughts on Crackdown 3 is this. There was a story that came out like days before this game became made available public on Game Pass that the Wrecking Zone multiplayer mode didn't support pre-made parties. That right there, to me, obviously they're going to fix that for later. But that right there also already it got some bad bad feedback because of that. Because again, the multiplayer is one of the biggest options in this game. Of course, when I downloaded the game, I noticed there's a download for campaign and then there's a download for Wrecking Ball. That right there, I didn't understand that at all, because I thought that you should have been that should have just been one download for the whole complete game. So the way that was put together as sort of like a piecemeal type of thing, I didn't really like that. With that said, I haven't played it yet because Microsoft also made the decision to release this game on the exact same day as 4 other titles. Those titles being Far Cry New Dawn, Jump Force, Metro Exodus, and there's another game that I for some reason I can't really think of it at the moment. But my point is, you're releasing it at a time where all these other games are out, so you're making people have to make a choice as to what they want to play. When essentially they could have released this out at another time, but I understand they wanted to get it out before other titles like Anthem, because Anthem is also out next Friday. So that's fine, but still, I would have wanted to release this at a time when it wasn't so much competition with other games that are out. And obviously, a lot of these other games, it's not really in the same genre as this particular title. But again, you're competing for people for people's time. So I think they should have released this at a different time when it wasn't really quite as much people that can go towards something else. So with that said, though, as far as the reviews, yeah, it definitely was going to be held to a high standard because, as you said, Gary, Microsoft made a big deal about this game beforehand, all the time people waiting, and then obviously all the delays, and then all of the changes that were made to it. I also will add that the creator of Crackdown leaving Microsoft and completely leaving the project altogether, that also was not a good sign of what was going to happen with this game either. So a lot of bad things, but I will say this. I'm glad Microsoft didn't cancel the game. Unlike Scalebound, which is a game that I really wanted to play, and then they decided to cancel it. I mean, I'm glad they didn't cancel it, but at the same time, I would say it's at least good that it is being offered through Game Pass, because I will tell, just based off of looks alone, I would tell anybody I would not recommend you spend $59.99 for this game. Absolutely not. But I will at least say, glad they didn't cancel it, and I hope that I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in the future with all their other titles, because I think for the most part, a lot of the exclusives that they have released this generation, they haven't really been horrible. I mean, Gears of War 4 was fantastic. So I would assume that, you know, they're going to continue to release pretty good titles across the board. This is just one where it was a disappointment. Recore is another one that I have heard is a disappointment, but I haven't played that. I haven't bothered to play that one because I heard about the bad news. But I will give this a try since I've already downloaded it on Game Pass, so I really have nothing to lose right now. But with all that said, we'll see what happens with Microsoft. I feel like it was a good decision to just release the game, period, so that you give people who have been waiting for the game something. But at the same time, they know what the deal is. They got to, you know, bring more quality titles out moving forward. You know, obviously the next Gears of War game, that's the next big game for them, aside from Ori and Will of the Wisp that I know about so far, which I'm pretty sure both of those games will be fantastic, so I'm not really concerned about that. But it is what it is. So
yeah, I mean, like, this is, I think this is like the last of the games that were like kind of sold early on in the Xbox One's life. So like now that this is finally out the way, and of course we're never getting Scalebound, but now that this is out the way, you know, now they can move on to, you know, new things and games that have already seen success like Ori, you know. So the future looks good from here for Microsoft. They have a lot of potential. They have a lot of things they can do from here on. They have new studios. They are going to be at E3, so they can have a complete blowout at E3 and, you know, wow us and impress us. So I think now that Crackdown 3 is out, they can put that era behind them, you know, that whole phase, that initial phase of Xbox. They can put it behind them and just move on, and, you know, it's like a fresh slate now. So at least it's out there in the wilds, and now we can move on and see what's next. I do have one question though.
yeah.
Can you do the Terry Crews dance in the game? Because if so, I'll download it right now. I'll buy it right now.
I'm not sure about that. That's a question for Edward. I mean, he said he played it and he loves the game, even though he's now talking bad about it in the chat and trying to defend it.
Cool. I'll have to Google it.
Yeah, but I will say this. I definitely will try out Crackdown, and I'll give my thoughts on it next week. Obviously, I wasn't going to prioritize it. If it came out on the 15th, you know, with all these other games I have been playing, Metro Exodus, which, as I said earlier on this show, I think that game definitely deserves the praise it's been getting. And I definitely would choose that game over this game because it is a story behind it, because it is a first-person shooter. So obviously, I enjoy that genre a little bit more. But yeah, I will try out Crackdown. I have something to say about it next week, and hopefully I'll have some positive thoughts, as well as Anthem. You know, I'll definitely going to play both of those games and talk about them next week. But yeah. Any final thoughts on Crackdown 3 before we get ready to wrap up the show?
No, I just want to shout out all the Xbots in the chat. What's up, Ed?
Well, I think he's the only one. So yeah, yeah. So on that note, that concludes our show for this week. Definitely thank you all for listening to the show. I want to take a quick minute to announce the Patreon winner of the Anthem giveaway. It was Mauricio Aguilar. Hopefully I pronounced that correct, because, you know, Ed is not on here to correct me. So, but yes, I want to congratulate you on winning. You know, I've already been in contact with you, so you definitely will be getting your game very soon. And for those that are interested, we are going to be doing another giveaway soon, so make sure you stay tuned to the website for more details. But as for shout-outs, I'm going to give the floor over to you first, Mr. Lugo, if you have any shout-outs that you would like to give.
Yeah, sure. Shouts to everybody watching the show now, whether you're catching it live or catching it later on the website and the YouTube channel. Thank you. We appreciate you guys' support. Shout out to everybody else that's been showing me some love on social media. I really appreciate you guys, as I've been posting up different reviews, posting up different exclusives that we've been getting. Every once in a while, I've been able to post up on the website some cool stuff. If you guys haven't already, I highly suggest you guys check out some of the exclusive written interviews that I've gotten as of late, including one about a Kingdom Hearts related book that I put up, was it not too long ago, that you guys definitely need to check out. It's from Third Editions. They're doing a Kingdom Hearts multi-volume series book. Was it about the entire franchise? So coming off of, like, the release of Kingdom Hearts 3, this is something that's very cool, and it's something different that I wanted to bring to you guys. So it's little things like that I've been working very hard to get up on the website, that's exclusive to us. You're not going to find that anywhere else. So I highly suggest you guys read up on that, as well as a couple other things I'm going to have down the line very soon that you guys are really going to enjoy. I'm hoping one of the big things that I got in the works happens this week, probably towards like the middle or the end of the week. It's going to be pretty damn dope, and you guys are going to be very happy as to what it is. But outside of that, again, thank you to everybody that's been showing love on social media. Thank you to everybody that's been leaving comments on all our content. And again, just constantly sticking with us throughout all this different stuff. We got a lot of great stuff planned throughout the rest of the year. It's going to be pretty dope.
Absolutely. Yes, agreed. I want to take a quick moment. Yeah, give a shout out to you as well. All the stuff that you have been posting on the site. Definitely would encourage everybody to check it out. We also want to give a shout out to Dana. I know she's posted a couple of interviews from a couple of actors and actresses that are actually, they were in Alita Battle Angel. So definitely check out those interviews on the website. Also want to give a shout out to Adam Vale as well. I know him, myself, and Dana, we actually recorded a little discussion podcast predictions for Elimination Chamber, which is tonight. So make sure you check out the show, and as well as check out the pay-per-view. Let us know your thoughts, and we'll definitely talk about that a little bit later on. But definitely want to give a shout-out to everybody that was in the chat today that checked out the show. I see Mr. Carl Donovan was in the chat, so shout-out to you, as well as Wesley and Edward and a few other people that I saw earlier. But yes, thank you all for your continued support. And Gary, the floor is now yours for shout-outs.
Yep, big shouts to all of our... Oh, my bad, I was muted. So yeah, big shouts to all of our Patreon supporters. That's M. Collins, Mauricio Aguilar, Himdil, Fergus Mills, Miguel, Antonio Rogers, and Sean Gority. We appreciate you all for your continued support. If you're not on the Patreon, then definitely consider it, because, like we said, Mauricio, he won the Legion of Dawn edition of Anthem. Now, he only won that edition of the game because he was a Patreon, whereas if somebody else would have won it, like somebody who's not a patron, they would have won the regular version of the game. So, these are the special things we do for our Patreon people and our supporters. And, we're also working on extra content that will be on the Patreon, and there will be future giveaways and, things like that. So, please consider it. You can donate as little as $1 and get all the perks. So that's something to consider. But we also love the people who chop it up with us, on a regular basis on Twitter and other platforms too. So big shouts to Wesley, for being on the show today. Shouts to Carl, Annabelle, and everyone, Miguel, and everyone who, chops it up with us on a regular basis. So big thanks to you guys, and shoutouts to the entire Koalition staff.
Absolutely. Yes. And thank you all for listening. I hope that you have a great week, and we will talk to you all next weekend.